Hey everyone, grab a seat at the kitchen table with me. I'm your host and co-director of Universal News Frontier, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a story that is fundamentally rewiring how we understand state politics in this country. We're zooming in on a massive political earthquake in a place a lot of folks probably weren't watching, the deep red supermajority of the Indiana state legislature. We aren't just going to recap the May 2026 primary. No, we're going to pop the hood, look at the actual mechanics of how this happened, and more importantly, figure out what this means for the future of the entire country. I want to kick things off right away with this quote. The president just flexed on Indiana, how 5 state senators lost their jobs for saying no to Trump. Honestly, this perfectly captures the shockwaves coming out of this primary. This wasn't your standard run-of-the-mill election cycle where a couple of incumbents just kind of lost touch with their base. Not at all. What we watched was an absolute masterclass in political retribution. It was a highly coordinated, incredibly well-funded executive intervention straight into state legislative sovereignty.
Section 1. The bigger picture. From local roads to national loyalty.
Okay, to really get what happened here, we have to rewind a bit. State politics used to be pretty insulated, right? It was mostly about funding local schools, fixing potholes, managing municipal budgets, that kind of thing. But this primary proved that local politics is now completely nationalized. Let's look at the timeline. It all kicked off in late 2025 when the Trump administration pushed for a really unusual mid-decade redistricting plan in Indiana under House Bill 1032. The goal was pretty straightforward: redraw the state's congressional maps to turn a 7-2 Republican advantage into a total 9-0 sweep, specifically targeting the 1st and 7th districts. The House passed it, no problem. But then, on December 11th, a full-blown rebellion happened in the Senate. 21 Republican state senators actually joined the Democrats to kill the bill. They argued that redrawing maps in the middle of a decade would just create massive electoral chaos and wreck institutional stability. Basically, they prioritized traditional legislative norms over the national America First strategy. Well, by late December, President Trump publicly fired back. He labeled those dissenting Republicans weak rhinos and explicitly promised they'd be facing MAGA primaries in the spring. Just like that, a political war was officially declared.
Here's the thing, though. This wasn't just some squabble over a map. It ripped open a fundamental fracture right down the middle of the Republican Party itself. On one side, you have the old guard GOP. These are institutionalists, championed by folks like former Governor Mitch Daniels. Their whole philosophy is centered around protecting local representation and keeping the state legislature independent and stable. But on the other side, you've got the new MAGA wing, heavily backed by President Trump, Governor Mike Braun, and Senator Jim Banks. Their mandate is very different. They believe local lawmakers need to fall in line with the national strategy to push that broader America First agenda in Washington. This primary was literally the collision of those two completely different philosophies.
Which brings us to Section 2, the structural coup and the hidden strategy behind the 2026 primary.
Now, this is where it gets incredibly interesting, because so many media outlets completely missed the actual mechanics at play here. They were super focused on the Trump versus rhinos headline, but they missed the real strategy running under the surface, which was a structural coup. Think of a structural coup as a highly coordinated maneuver to fundamentally alter the leadership mechanics of a body. It makes the legislature subservient to executive demands, rather than just randomly unseating a few politicians. The goal of the Indiana Flex wasn't just to punish a few rogue senators. The actual objective was to completely reorganize the power dynamics of the Indiana Senate. And here is exactly how they pulled it off: the leadership pledge. According to the reporting, every single primary challenger recruited by Governor Mike Braun was asked to make an explicit pledge. If they got elected, they promised they would vote to oust Roderick Bray from his position as Senate President pro tem. So think about the implication there. By binding these new candidates to a pledge to remove the guy who allowed the legislative rebellion in the first place, the executive branch, meaning the governor and the White House, effectively stripped away the Senate's independence. They turned the chamber into a direct extension of their national agenda.
All right, Section 3. The tactics of retribution. Let's follow the money and the pressure.
Listen, to pull off a structural coup of this magnitude, you need a mountain of resources. And $13,500,000, that is a staggering amount of ad spending to inject into a state Senate primary. To put it in perspective, that is an absolutely unprecedented, eye-watering figure for a local legislative race.
Just look at these numbers. Back in the 2022 and 2024 cycles, the total ad spending for state Senate primaries averaged around $250,000. Fast forward to 2026, it exploded to $13.5 million. That's a 5,300% increase. And where was all this cash coming from? It certainly wasn't local grassroots bake sales. Over $10 million poured in directly from outside super PACs,
We're talking groups like Turning Point Action and Senator Jim Banks' Who's Your Leadership for America. Just look down at District 23 at the bottom. Spending there went from about $142,000 4 years ago to $3.5 million this year. It was total, overwhelming financial saturation designed to just bury the local incumbents.
And that money funded some incredibly aggressive tactics. The incumbents were facing 5-to-1 negative ad spending ratios. But honestly, it went way beyond just television commercials. We saw a really dark undercurrent of intimidation emerge. Lawmakers who opposed the redistricting map, like Senator Greg Good, were targeted with swanning, where false, extreme reports are made to the police just to provoke an armed response at a private home. There were coordinated doxing campaigns, even bomb threats, right after social media callouts from national figures. The sheer intensity of this pressure completely neutralized the polite old guard defense. The whole environment escalated in a way we rarely see at this level of government.
The end result? This strategy was incredibly effective. 5 high-ranking, long-serving incumbent state senators were decisively ousted. These are politicians who had safely held their seats for years, just swept out in a single night. Senator Greg Good was actually the lone survivor among the targeted group. And then you have this absolutely wild toss-up over in District 23. Incumbent Spencer Deary got hit with $2.5 million in negative ads from his challenger, Paula Copenhaver. As of our recording, Deary is clinging to a lead of exactly 5 votes. 5 votes! The whole race is hanging on just 17 provisional ballots. The sweep was, for all intents and purposes, nearly absolute.
Moving into Section 4, Predictions for the Future and the Domino Effect.
Because as analysts, our job isn't just to tell you the news, it's to break down what it actually means for tomorrow. Now that the dust is settling, if history is any guide, I'd expect to see these exact 3 steps play out. Step 1. Roderick Bray will be removed as Senate President pro tem before 2026 is over. With those 5 incumbents defeated and a few others retiring, over a quarter of the Republican caucus is now made up of brand new members who are explicitly loyal to the Trump and Braun agenda. And remember, they are bound by that leadership pledge. Step 2. With the institutionalist opposition removed, the Indiana General Assembly is going to easily pass that 9-0 Republican redistricting map in the 2027 session. And Step 3, which is probably the most crucial for the rest of the country, this exact retribution blueprint is going to be exported. National PACs and executive leaders are already eyeing states like Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee. They now have a proven, highly effective model for using massive outside money and nationalized rhetoric to completely crush internal party dissent at the state level.
Finally, Section 5, the community loop. We really want to hear from you.
We've gone through the structural implications, the insane influx of money, and the strategy. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. Is it more important for a state senator to prioritize protecting their local community's representation and local institutions, or should they always fall in line with the national party leader to help win the bigger fight in Washington? I really want to know what you think. Drop your specific opinions and your predictions for what happens next down in the comments. We read through all of them, and honestly, it's where the best conversations happen. Thank you so much for joining me at the kitchen table today for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.